The Far Quest, The Chronicles of Cursoon, Book 1, by R. Jason Lynch, copyright 2016, EMP 2023, all rights reserved. Chapter 14, Baleful's Song.
Old Bogra can sing yous a song, and I says it's true.
The trollop let out a rumbling chuckle. After a thoughtful pause, she began to make up a song. Her singing echoed up from deep within her huge throat, and it came forth low, rough, and guttural.
There's naught in life but death that's sure, and from that fate yez find no cure. Only cold and dark will be yez grave, and none'll come for yez to save, 'cause there's no king, none in sky reigns, but yas not know, 'cause worms'll eat yas brains.
Baleful burst into roaring laughter that seemed to shake the whole world within her den. As she laughed, she rocked backwards and kicked out her huge, gnarled feet. With his arms still crossed, Cursoon frowned and rolled his blue eyes, but the trollop's laughter was so exaggerated that the bard found it impossible to keep a smile from coming onto his own face. However, as before, the giantess paid for her mirth, for her riotous laughter soon turned into a terrible fit of coughing, and this fit was worse than any that had come before it. When, at last, she was done, she struggled to breathe. Wiping the same black liquid from her lips, Baleful considered the smaller man for a moment.
Well, there's no doubt yez believe the tale, but where's your proof? How'd yez know he that sang it till you weren't lying?
She asked, pushing the argument further and enjoying the controversy.
Grinder's skull is kept in the Great Hall of Ataraxia to bear witness.
Cursoon offered with less confidence than before.
Well, old Bogra ain't never heard of no never save.
She mispronounced the name mockingly.
And I think I's heard of such a warrior, if he's so renowned for killing dragons and trolls.
Baleful commented with a growl that conveyed a cruel and yet approving tone.
No,
the bard retorted defensively.
He's not celebrated for his prowess in battle, but for his kindness, his compassion, and the virtue of his touch, for he healed all who ever came to him.
Kindness? Passion?
Baleful echoed with a questioning sneer.
He sure had none for that troll. Was his name Grinder?
Cursoon was beginning to wish he had never started this story. He, himself, had far too many misgivings without this cruel giantess adding to them. He quickly forced his mind to focus again on the telling of the story, for he wished to chase away the shadowy seeds of doubt his abductor clearly seemed to enjoy sowing. Moreover, it seemed wise that he clarified to Baleful the true character of Eversave, for obviously the trollop had gotten the wrong idea concerning the warrior bard. Plus, he hoped to find strength for himself in the telling.
It's well known that Eversave healed the tree glimmering with his own blood, and thus he cured more through his death than ever he did in his life.
This was just the sort of statement which gave Cursoon the assurance he so longed to have, and it was of great beauty to him.
So this mightiest of warriors is dead?
The trollop scoffed with a deep guttural growl.
And he healed with his blood, yez believe this dung?
The bard felt a sharp sliver of anger creep into his heart, for this vile, beastly woman was chipping away at the very foundations of his beliefs. He quietly clenched his teeth, as the darkness around him seemed to deepen to almost overwhelming. Baleful was silent for a moment, and then, after a fit of coughing, she asked a more thoughtful question.
How'd he heal more with his death?
The very thought was alien to the trollop. Cursoon did not want to answer any more of her questions, but there was a much more pressing matter. He wanted to go on living. If ever he was to escape from this place alive, he had to keep Baleful from becoming dissatisfied with his storytelling. and it seemed as though she rather enjoyed hearing a story that she believed a lie. So, setting his feelings aside, he answered while suppressing his expression of annoyance.
When he was slain, his blood flowed down, wetting the charred remains of the tree glimmering. That's how he healed it. The power in his blood restored the dead tree to life so that it blossoms once more. Even now it bears the fruit glimmering, which will heal all who eat it.
Baleful sat still and quiet, and her huge, ugly face seemed to be full of utter disdain for the story Cure-Soon had told. It was quite clear to the bard that he would soon be showing up on the trollop's horrible menu. Suddenly, without a word, the giantess gathered up her great size, and doing so, she seemed to fill the whole cave. The bard braced for the end, but instead of crushing him, Baleful turned and stomped toward the mouth of the long tunnel that led off into darkness. As she went, she passed the strange red flame torch, and it flickered noisily in protest. Then, just before she exited the den, she paused and spoke over her shoulder, without looking back at Cure-Soon.
If this never saved such a great healer, why ain't he healed Yaz yet?
Heal me? I don't...
Cure-Soon started to reply defensively, but then he left his objection unfinished.
Watch it now! Yaz forbidden to lie!
Baleful scoffed and then continued into the tunnel. In seconds, the giantess was gone, but Cure-Soon could still feel her heavy footsteps causing the ground all around him to tremble long after she had vanished from his sight. When he was sure she was gone, the bard swore loudly.
Broken strings, that woman's infuriating.
With a sigh, he collapsed back down upon his rock, grumbling to himself.
She stomps about sowing her doubts like a farmer planting poisonous weeds.
For more than a few minutes, Cure-Soon sat there going over his conversation with the giantess. He tended to replay such things over in his head while trying to figure out what he could have said in a better way. However, as he was beating himself up, he slowly became distracted by his surroundings. In truth, the trollop's den was more like an enormous room dug into the mud. Water dripped from the ceiling, and bare roots stuck out from high above his head and from every wall. Many bugs scurried about here and there, and all manner of bones were strewn upon the muddy floor. To the bard's horror, some were even the bones of men, and the sight of them caused a small bit of his fear to return. No furnishings decorated the walls, save the sconce that held the red-flamed torch. There were neither chairs, nor a table, nor even a bed. It was just a damp, slimy hole with no comforts at all. This realization made a sliver of sympathy pass through his heart.
This is her home,
he asked himself with a hint of pity. But he quickly pushed this feeling away, and with it gone, he suddenly awoke to his opportunity.
You fool!
Cure-Soon whispered to himself.
Surely now is my chance to escape.
As he started for the only visible exit, he abruptly stopped.
Wait, what of my swords, my loot, my pack?
With that, he began to glance about the earthen chamber. First, he found his loot, but it was broken into several pieces, and so he left it where it lay. Clenching his teeth with a mix of despair and anger, he continued to search for his other possessions. Next, he stumbled over his pack, and though it was caked in foul-smelling mud, it seemed undamaged. Slinging it over his shoulders, he looked about for his swords. However, the light from the strange torch was so faint that he could not discern his mud-covered weapons against the muck of the floor. With growing desperation, the bard fell onto his knees and began to search with frantic hands.
I can't return to my father's hall without my family's most prized heirloom. But then, what if she left them out in the swamp where she caught me? If that be the case, then I'm searching in vain.
He groaned miserably, but his hope that they were there would not let him give up the search so quickly, and so, after what felt like hours, he was overjoyed when his cold, numb fingers touched something smooth and hard. It was both swords still in their scabbards upon his belt. Immediately, Cure-Soon leapt to his feet, fastened his belt around his waist, and made for the exit anew. But when he came to it, He paused and anxiously peered into the utter darkness of the long, muddy passage.